It seems like President-elect Donald Trump just can't stop making new friends. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is in Mar-A-Lago Friday meeting with Trump. The pair is reportedly discussing the incoming administration's illegal immigration crackdown, which stands to impact New York's roughly 3.1 million immigrant population. The meeting's timing, 3 days ahead of inauguration, comes as the president is mulling pardoning Adams, who has been indicted on federal corruption charges for accepting bribes from the Turkish government in exchange for political favors.
Allegedly, that is. Adams spokesperson Fabian Levi released a statement Thursday defending the sit-down, saying the mayor has, quote, made clear his willingness to work with President-elect Trump. With speculation of a pardon swirling, Adams' choice to meet Trump could present a political risk as the Democratic mayor gears up for re-election. Already, multiple challengers have jumped in to face off against Adams in the June Democratic mayoral primary. Several opponents are using their rendezvous with Trump to assail Adams. Well, this is quite an odd couple, Amber. Eric Adams indicted on 5 charges. The evidence is pretty compelling. I think he is entitled, of course, in court to the presumption of innocence, like anyone is. But I am skeptical, to say the least, that the reason for this visit is really to discuss immigration policy. I noted that, I think in the New York Times reporting, they said that Eric Adams will be travelling alone with only a security person with him. And certainly there would be widespread suspicion, I think, that what he's really interested in is a pardon from President-elect Trump.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It could be that the meeting is about immigration, but Eric Adams wants to slip in that little request.
Have a little chat
from the president-elect. Look, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Is Trump going to grant it? I don't know. But I will say with Eric Adams on the immigration front, he has been, of course, very resistant to the idea that he should step aside. He wants to run for re-election. He is very obstinate in the face of these allegations. And so, for the time being, until this does go to trial, Trump is going to have to work with him to some capacity in regards to his mass deportation plans. There's a significant number of illegal aliens living in New York City right now, subject to a mandatory housing policy, by the way. And Mayor Adams has been quite vocal about the idea that he does not think the Democratic Party has been handling this issue well. They haven't been giving him the resources or the policy changes necessary for New York to be able to sustain this kind of influx. So you might see some weird bedfellows. We also saw John Fetterman going down to Mar-A-Lago recently to talk to Trump as well. There's going to be a lot of interesting crossover, I think, with this administration and the Democrats.
There's going to be a lot of interesting crossover because I think there's an odd confluence of interests, some of which are legitimate interests around immigration and how to handle immigration, and others are simply Eric Adams' obvious motivation to perhaps seek a pardon. Now, he insists that he is innocent. It is perhaps useful for our audience to just sort of briefly summarize what the allegations against him are. They are allegations of using so-called straw donors for campaign contributions, which is where the money is actually coming from someone who can't contribute to your campaign, but you put it under someone else's name to conceal it. There is also more to this than just campaign finance violations, because the suggestion or the allegation is that Adams and people close to him were given free and heavily discounted flights and hotels pertaining to Turkish Airlines or the government of Turkey. And then at a later point, Adams is alleged to have leaned on the New York Fire Department to issue clearance for a new Turkish consular building to open in New York, which it appears that clearance or approval would not otherwise have been given at that point. So you have a situation where there is a safety mandate or requirement that is allegedly being circumvented by now the current mayor of New York City, because he's getting perks from that government. It is a serious allegation,
It is very serious, and if there were any argument for Trump going along with a pardon here, it's that he has said previously that he believes the only reason Mayor Adams was investigated was because of his comments against the Democratic Party on immigration. I know, he says it.
Yeah.
Is it true? Gosh, I don't think so. But even if it were, that doesn't obviously get rid of the fact that
Right.
there is this compelling evidence that he did engage in some massive foreign corruption business deals. But going back to the politics of this, I think it's fascinating to watch the two very extreme Democratic responses to Trump's immigration agenda. You have John Fetterman and Eric Adams, who acknowledge that the Democrats have a huge weakness on immigration. They don't support all of Trump's immigration agenda, but they're sort of willing to at least give some credence to the ideas that he's espousing and say, at the very least, we need border security. But then you have the Massachusetts governor, the mayor of Chicago, vowing that they're not going to work with the Trump administration at all on mass deportation, even as it pertains to potential criminal illegal aliens. And they are going to use their local police to basically have a standoff situation with federal immigration authorities. How do you think, Niall, the party is going to reconcile these two very diametrically opposed positions?
So they are very opposed. I think one of the things that might help them heal that division is that there are very real questions as to whether Trump can enact anything close to what he is pledging to enact. Initially, there was this idea, which is still being spoken about, of the largest deportation operation in American history. Now, other people like Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, have certainly suggested that it will initially be targeted at people who have committed crimes. That is obviously a valid point of view. It's also a much narrower population. I was interested as well to see quite recently, within the past couple of weeks, the Wall Street Journal, not typically a great voice of liberalism, writing a very good piece about the barriers that face Trump's immigration agenda in terms of really practical things, like, for example, clearing the asylum backlog would generally require getting a lot more judges to hear asylum cases to ensure that you weren't then exposed to legal claims from the asylum seekers themselves that their due process laws had been violated. There are all kinds of things like that that might actually delay Trump enacting his agenda. I think Democrats broadly acknowledge that this is a vulnerable issue for them, but I also think that they are, with the exception of people like Fetterman, loath to confront their base by aligning themselves with Trump on an issue that can be so inflammatory, particularly to large parts of the Democratic base.
Yeah, I think they're also banking on the idea that there's going to be some missteps, frankly, in the mass deportation plans, where there's going to be probably some public incidents that don't look great for the Trump administration. And they're hoping that those happen soon enough that they can say, see, we told you that this was a bad idea. On the point about the asylum backlog, I mean, certainly there's a lot that would need to go through Congress to really address some of the fundamental issues with the current border crisis. But Trump has supposedly promised to implement 100 executive orders. Last time he did, 97 on his first day in office, some of those including continuing President Biden's limit on asylum seekers who don't cross at the ports of entry. So we will, of course, continue to follow this and everything relating to the incoming Trump administration, which will be sworn in on Monday. But that's going to do it for us today on Rising. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.